Yeah, we are live.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Town Council meeting to order on Monday, December 18th, and ask Shelley Carbone to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sue is not here tonight, so we're going to ask our town manager, Fred, to read the roll, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Bailey. Here. Councilor Carbone.
Here.
Councilor Clancy.
Here.
Councilor Dirk.
Here.
Councilor Rhodes.
Here.
Councilor Timbrough.
Here.
Councilor Zambrello.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Here.
Mayor Lesser.
Here. Thank you, Fred. The next item on the agenda is presentations, and we have the Police Department's activity report. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilors. Thank you for having us this evening. We're here to present our bi-monthly report on police activity in the spirit of succession planning and career development.
You going anywhere, Chief?
No, I'm not going anywhere unless you know something I don't know, Councilor, Deputy Mayor. Lieutenant Gustavo Rodriguez, who's the most senior lieutenant, will be presenting tonight. 2 months from now will be Lieutenant Bouyak, following that Lieutenant Holton, Lieutenant Bache, and then back around. So just part of, you getting to know my staff, them getting to know you, and developing them up here in front. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Rodriguez.
Good evening. Thank you, Chief. All right, we'll start. So the first slide here is our demographics for the police department. As you can see, we're budgeted for 51. Currently, we have 45 sworn officers. We're down 6 right now. Excuse me. As far as the genders of our police officers, we have 38 males and 7 females, and we are committed for 30 for 30, so we're actively recruiting to reach that goal, hopefully in the near future. As far as race is concerned, we have 36 Caucasians, 8 Hispanics, 1 African American, and 1 Asian American. As far as experience levels, we have 24 lateral officers currently with the police department, and we have 21 that started as entry-level officers. For the time period covered, which is October 1st through November 30th, we responded to and documented 6,041 calls for service. What you're looking at now is the reported motor vehicle accidents that the police department responded to. It's 108. Most of them occurred on Wednesday and Friday between 4 and 6 o'clock. And we experienced 50 in October and 58 in November. This is a map representing where those accidents occur. As you can see, they're clustered mostly along the Silas, Maple, the Berlin Turnpike, and a fair amount on Wells. And we'll come back to this map in a second. What I wanted to highlight tonight was what our efforts have produced over the past year insofar as having a traffic officer deployed. These are stats from the Yukon Crash Data Repository. These folks collect every single crash report that's generated by the police department. They get it statewide, and so we get good, accurate numbers as to what our accidents are looking like. So for 2022, we experienced 590 total crashes. If we look at this year for 2023, through October 31st, which was the latest data that they had on the website, we had experienced 377. So at that point, we were down, we had a decrease of 36%, which is statistically significant insofar as making our roads safer. As of today, this morning, unfortunately, I updated the numbers and we're down to 20%, which is still a good number to be down. We're making our roads safer. I just want to highlight what what we've done so far as making the roads safer. So we got away from enforcing equipment violations and strictly enforcing the things that make the town unsafe as insofar as the roadways, and that is hazardous, speeding, running through stop signs, distracted driving, being on your cell phone, having our officer out there deployed in conjunction with our patrol division. We were able to, as a department, we made 6,149 motor vehicle stops, which is significant, and we made the town safer, our roadways safer. For the time period, we stopped 478 cars. 20% of the stops were between the ages of 20 and 35, and 84% of those stopped were Caucasians. Now, if you look at this map, this represents where those motor vehicle stops are occurring, and if you see that, all of our enforcement is concentrated on those spots where we're experiencing car crashes. The Berlin Turnpike, Silas, Maple, Wells. That's where we're concentrating our efforts on. And before I end this section on motor vehicle enforcement, I just wanted to highlight the fact that the Institute for Municipal and Regional Policy just released their study in October, and I wanted to highlight this quote in the study that's pertinent to our police department and our efforts. The Weathersfield Police Department has been identified with statistically significant disparities in the study and several previous studies. Since 2015, the project staff have conducted 3 follow-up analyses to understand better the factors contributing to racial and ethnic disparities in Weathersfield. In this study, the department's statistically significant disparity only appeared in the 3-year aggregate analysis and was not identified when researchers analyzed 2020 and 2021 alone. It is evident that the 2019 data is significantly contributing to the disparity highlighted in the 3-year aggregate analysis. A new police chief who revised the command staff was brought in by town officials in 2021 to address this and other issues within the department. Based on conversations with the agency, we believe reforms have been and continue to be implemented that will address the disparities outlined in this report. Therefore, it is reasonable that any changes made by the department would not be reflected in their data until 2022 and 2023. Since the 3-year aggregate analysis covers a significant portion of time prior to changes in the leadership, it is unsurprising that the department would continue to show statistically significant racial and ethnic disparities. We will continue monitoring the department's data to assess changes in the racial and ethnic disparities in more recent years. And so we actually met with the director, with the associate director of the Institute, Mr. Ken Barone, and that meeting was productive, and the numbers are going to reflect that when the studies come back out. This is the crime reporting for the town, for the time period covered. So you see we start off with disorderly conduct, theft from motor vehicle or parts, domestics, and it goes down the line. We experienced 156 of those.
Is that just in October? I'm
Nope.
looking at the date.
No, it's October to November 30th.
So 2 months?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is the crime reporting for theft from motor vehicles. And, excuse me one second. We experienced 35 of those. These are the town ordinances that we responded to: parking violations, fireworks, noise complaints, and other town ordinance violations. These are our support services, calls for service: 82 ACO calls, 6 child seek checks, and 1 officer crossing guard. And that is it. Do you have any questions? Yep.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Any questions?
An ACO, I'm sorry.
Council Caldwell?
The
Animal control officer. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Any other questions for Lieutenant? Deputy Mayor Forrest?
Thank you. Lieutenant, you brought up a scatter plot of the South Deane Highway that looked at enforcement. Do you have a scatter plot of actual crashes and the severity of those crashes?
We do, I showed it earlier, let me go back to it. These are the motor vehicle accidents right here.
And do those indicate just the fact that there was an accident or its severity? 'Cause
No, so you see that they're color coordinated at the top, so it'll say,
It's tough to read. from
it's
here.
tough to read, it says evading, private property, and what looks like orange or fuchsia here, or purple, is MVA with injury.
Okay, so I see a lot of purple, but I only see like MVA with injury, like on the South Side Highway. Maybe there's 2 red dots.
It's hard to tell from this, but,
Yeah.
you know, when we're investigating crashes, a lot of the times they're non-evident injuries. In other words, someone is complaining of an injury, but it's not evident to the officer. And so there is a box in the accident crash report that you can check off because someone is claiming injury. Other times, these injuries are evident. Someone's bleeding, they're unconscious, things of that nature.
And then is it, I see that this data, it looks like it's just, I don't say just, but for maybe the last 60 days, 65 days?
2 days. I'm sorry, 2 months.
2 months? Yeah.
October, November.
Is it possible to get like a year's worth of
course.
data on the South State Highway in particular, where, you know, you're seeing most of the crashes and obviously seeing
Yes.
most of the enforcement? And is there a way to know the severity within the data rather than just like the check box you check for injury? Is that just that tells us a little bit? I guess suppose you could have a serious crash and no injury, like, you know, great car, safety features and so forth.
Yeah, no, so again, if it's a not, most times someone is claiming injury and we don't know. They're just saying, you know, my back hurts, my neck hurts, my arm hurts. I know that I've been to crashes when you first get there, like, oh my God, and the person's fine. And then you get to something that doesn't look bad and the person's really hurt. So it's hard to tell, and it would be almost impossible to go back and figure out who actually had an injury, a legitimate injury versus just claiming to have an injury.
How about maybe like whether or not the car was towed from the scene? Is
Yeah.
that data available? That might be
We can get
indicator.
that. Yeah, we can get that.
And then some of your last 2 slides, if you could, that would be. Of
course.
Some of your last 2 slides talked about ordinance violations.
Yep.
I think it was maybe the last 2 or so.
Right here.
And this talks about incident reporting count. Does that mean that somebody's calling and reporting an incident, or is that,
Not necessarily, so.
help me understand what that means?
So any parking violation is just that, any parking violation. So it can be an officer sees a violation and he or she enforces it, or a resident does call and report something.
So are these tickets issued?
There are tickets issued, yes.
Is there a way to break down the tickets issued, and we've talked about this before, into the different ordinance violations that tickets were issued for?
Yes, I have that for you, if you need it right now.
I don't need it right now. No,
Okay.
not at all. But if you could get it to me, that would be helpful. And is
Okay.
what time frame is this from?
The same, October
The two-
1st,
the
the
2
2 months, yeah.
months-ish.
So 92 tickets in total were issued in that time
Is it-
period.
Do you have the data that goes back for the year? Can we get a year-end review?
We could work on that. That's going to be a hand search, it's going
I
to
did-
take time.
And I don't know the whole, obviously, I thought it might just be. So perhaps we could talk about, maybe not a hand search, but if you can get the data easily, I'd like to see the data with the
So
ordinances.
going back a year would be something that would take a while because we would have to, again, hand search it, and a
Can
lot
we
of
go back
it,
6 months without the hand search?
no.
How far, is it just the last 2 months that this?
So we
program is
collected from records for the last 2 months, so somebody actually, as they process these tickets, they write it down for us. Our RMS system, NextGen, doesn't have the ability to distinguish between what is what. In other words, if I give a ticket out for a fire lane violations versus an all-night parker,
Sure.
all it's going to know any parking violation is going to be the call for service, if you will, in RMS. So it would literally have to be a hand search or click on every single call, which would amount to hundreds of times sometimes.
So when I asked you, though, about the last 60 days, you said no problem.
Well, again, it could be a hand search. I can get it for you, but it's going to be a hand search.
So I'm just,
Sorry.
yeah, it's okay.
I mean, for us to do that, Deputy Mayor, that's going to take time.
Okay.
And staffing really doesn't allow for that, to go back 6 months. We could do it going forward if you would like, but to go back a year, that's going to take quite a bit of work away from my clerks
Yeah.
and from my staff, which we have other things that we need to get done. If you want it done, we can do it, But you're not going to get it in a timely manner, I can tell you that.
Does the program that you guys use allow you to collect the data for the ordinance or the specific violations that have been issued, whether it's a town ordinance or a DUI infraction, or like,
The town
can we
ordinance-
see what was
The
what
town
was
ordinance,
cited?
or a drop-down that says town ordinance.
Yeah.
For you to get the specific type of ordinance violation, that has to be done by hand. So that whole number of 76, correct me if I'm wrong, is based on the next gen. And now our clerks are doing it by hand for us.
So it sounds like the program that we have, the computer program, doesn't allow for us to designate the type of violation that's been cited for.
It's not set up for that, it's set up for town ordinance.
Is it possibly set up for that?
That's something we would have to check with next gen to reprogram it.
And just have a drop-down menu? Yeah, I hit him with
It
7.
will be a sub-menu, it'll be a drop-down menu with a subtitle for a second section.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else, Deputy Mayor?
There was a big quotation here, and I was just trying to be clear. What was the organization that quotation came from, and what document?
So that is, let me get back to you. So it's the Institute for Municipal and Regional Policy, and that's out of the University of Connecticut.
Yukon up in stores?
It's at UConn. I don't know if his office, Mr. Barone, is out of UConn, out of stores, but that's who he works for, and that's where the project comes from.
And is that like in a recent report that was?
That was released October of 2023, sir.
We do it every year.
It's the racial profiling report,
Thank you.
simplified it.
Yep. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Any other council questions, comments? Council Carbone.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi. So thank you for making our roads safer. It's obvious, so thank you. I know we still have some work to do. We will be getting some funding, I guess, to start working on a project that we're all very passionate about, and that is slowing down traffic on the Silas Deane or making the Silas Deane safer. And based on your analysis, obviously a lot of stuff happens on that. What are your recommendations as really our face of public safety? You're out there all the time. What can we as a council, what can we put our efforts to make it safer, to start slowing down traffic, to prevent some of this stuff?
Well, I was having a conversation earlier today. Maybe meet with the state reps, see if we get funding for the red light cameras like they just installed in West Hartford. We have to understand our staffing levels and what we're doing. So technology like that, if you can push that, maybe a regionalization of that, funding for it to put it on the Silas Deane and Turnpike, excuse me. That's an idea, for one. Two, once my staffing levels get up, then we'll back up to par, then we'll start working on getting the traffic unit back out there and going out and doing enforcement in those high crash areas that we showed already.
Do you think narrowing the roads at all? I know there's been some talk about that, or is that?
That would be for Derek Greger to town engineer.
And then I have one more thing. So you did talk about staffing, and this is just because I'm curious, really. So we do our budget every year, and we budgeted you for 51 positions, and you're down 6 right now. So, and this, everybody might know this but me, but when you are not actively funding 6 positions, where does that money go?
That stays in the budget, and as we hire, it starts pulling from that funding.
So if you don't fill the positions within that budget, that, say, I don't know, just throw out a number, 40,000 for 6 positions, whatever, so that 240,000 at the end, does it roll over? Is that something that?
You'll see that when we go into budget season, how that's going to come away from my budget and probably as a savings to the town, but it's got to be reincorporated to next budget so I can have
I was
the
just
funding to
curious.
hire. So you'll see that when we go into the budget season, we
Okay.
talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, councilors?
Just one quick comment on the cost for service that I have up here, $6,041. That seems like a big number, but just to highlight that, that 2,869 are patrol checks for my officers. That's proactive work, them checking the residents and businesses and being out there and being visible. You take that out of there, and then you take another 2,631 out of that. That's traffic stops they conducted. TS. No, excuse me, no. 540 is traffic stops, but it reduces it. And as you take those non-calls for service that are coming from the public, but self-initiated work from my officers, it's down well below 2,000 calls. And then when you take away the miscellaneous things like, I got one on here for town-owned generator test. That's 9 numbers that are being punched for calls for service, but they're truly not calls for service to our agency. So when you look at this overall number, it's a big number, and I keep saying this every time I present. It's not the true actual calls we're getting into the PD. These are every single case number we're punching for something. So the numbers might seem big, but they're not that big. So just food for thought on that. I had that. And anything else from me?
Councilors, anything else? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate all you do and your whole team. Thank you. Lieutenant, thank you for the presentation. Moving right along to C-1, public hearing on R-23008, resolution creating a quality of life committee. It's a public hearing. Do I have anybody who would like to speak on this item? Tom? Sure. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. 5 minutes for public hearing. It's funny to see you out there and not here.
Yeah, it looks the same. This is like a flashback.
Two texts saying that people don't think that the live feed is live.
They can't hear it?
People aren't, that it's not on the TV.
Hold on a minute, can we check?
Did you hear that, Jim?
I just got 2 texts saying that people aren't able to see the feed. On the people, but they're saying they're not sure.
So 2 people are watching. Or attempting to watch.
Do it too.
2 more than I thought. You're on YouTube? Or?
On YouTube, yeah.
Good evening, Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walker Hill Road. I'd like to make a few comments about the resolution creating a quality of life committee. As I read the item description, it says to provide recommendations to the council for ways to address the quality of life issues. And the issues that are written up, and although it does say it's not limited to what's written here, public safety, speeding, traffic violations, crime, noise violations, parking violations, blighted property, vacant properties, and then town-owned properties and facility maintenance. So the way I see it, most of those regulations already exist. There are zoning blight ordinances that are in place. I actually worked with Deputy Mayor Forrest revising those blight ordinances. I think that was one of the first projects we took on to try and put more teeth into it so that we could maybe have a greater effect on some of these blight issues. I understand the laws have changed and we might possibly revise them again to make it a little bit better, but in any event, most of those blight issues are covered, or zoning enforcement issues. And the same goes with the public safety. I mean, we have our police officers here, our staff here. We heard from the chief and, I'm sorry, Lieutenant Gonzalez? I don't know if I got that right, but, you know, I don't think it's the council's job to come up with ways to address these issues. I don't see a problem with having community input, but how to address speeding is not really up to the council members, I think, unless you have some vast policing experience that I don't know about. These are the guys that would tell you how to do that. Same goes with zoning. We have a zoning enforcement officer. That's a position. They see a problem, And if it's contrary to our rules and regulations in town, they should take action. You know, there are a couple items, beautification of public spaces. Yeah, that's an item that could be brought forward. The point I'm getting at is, and I'm kind of going round and round, but, you know, the quality of life, these issues, after a while, when you get used to seeing trash on the side of the road, or you get used to seeing signage that doesn't comply with our regulations, you get used to it, and people stop complaining about it. You've lowered the quality of life, but no one really cares that much about it. So I don't think bringing a committee together of people that are going to say, geez, we need to do something about all the signage that just makes Silas Deane Highway look like some kind of drag strip of all kinds of, I don't know, too many signs. Same goes with noise. And I'll give you an example. In the report that was cited tonight, the focus to improve our numbers for racial profiling was to eliminate equipment stops. One of those equipment stops is these noisy mufflers that I've complained about when I was up there. This past week, I was on Walcott Hill Road, and one of these cars was in front of me. I took a picture of the car, the plate. The individual saw me take the picture. He was staring at me in his rearview mirror, and he sped off. The next morning, I went to the police station. You know, like Barney Fife or whatever. Citizen's arrest. And I said I want to make a complaint. I have this car with the mufflers backfiring. Well, the way the ordinance is written, the police have to see this car or hear this car. Tom can't report it because they didn't witness it. So now they know who the driver is. They know where he lives. I said, well, why don't we go over to his house and ask him to come out and start his vehicle? Well, I guess you can't do that either. So how do you address this? We're not going to pull anybody over for noise because it might escalate into a bad situation, or it might skew our data to make it look like we're going after a certain demographic. So the rest of us, we just have to put up with the quality of life noise issue. So that's just one example. I don't know, I think I'm going to keep taking pictures of people's license plates and making a complaint. And maybe at some point they'll get sick of listening to me and change the methods. But anyways, food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else on this hearing item? Yes, Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Coppermill Road. I agree with what Mr. Mazzarella said. He hit a number of good buttons right on the head regarding this issue of quality of life. What he didn't talk about was the quality of life of a citizen to live here, what it costs to live here. And maybe that is something that the town should be looking at. I mean, when a person goes out to buy a house, he gets qualified. Can he afford to buy this house or not? We should be qualifying the town how much they can spend based on all of our people. I mean, the state of Connecticut provides income levels, all the different income levels for each town. We should be able to go in and look at that and determine from all of that information how much could a person actually pay in taxes. I mean, they do that when they go buy a house and get a loan at the local bank or a national bank, whatever. But once they get here, they buy that house here, and the taxes keep going up and up like they have been, and they'll continue doing. Maybe their quality of life is going downhill. I mean, I think that would affect a great deal of our people. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of people that are retired. They don't work anymore. They live on pensions, or they live on the meager interest that they get from the bank. And, you know, their quality of life is going down. I know, all the items that Mr. Mazzarella talked about, those are considerations as well. But this is another one that you folks should be looking at, because what can the citizen pay on the average? And it is on the average. And if you bring people into town, I know you're always saying, oh, great town, bring people in because of our schools. Well, that's fine and dandy, but we, the retirees, we end up paying the bulk of a lot of that expense. And as you grow older, you'll be paying that as well. And also, we've seen people come to this podium who said, oh, I have 6 kids. I came from Hartford, and I'm happy living here. Wow, what a deal they made. And the rest of us are paying for their 6 kids in school. And those should be in the equation as well as to what we can afford. And we can't continue to afford the increases that we're looking at. You know, we hear about schools and whatnot. We can't afford that. And that's a quality of life issue. And that should be part of this analysis, and it should be 100% transparent. I know, transparent is a word you folks don't know, especially the prior couple administrations back. No transparency there at all. And it continued. No transparency whatsoever. But you got to turn it around now and start being transparent with us. I mean, we're all stuck now with high bills from the town of Weathersfield. And the payment comes up what? January, at the end of January, or it started January 1st, I guess it's when it's due. The next round of taxes. So I'll be back, but I think that you should really consider quality of life has a lot to do with what Tom talked about, but also what people can afford. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anybody else from the public? Okay, I'm going to say the hearing is now closed, and now we'll go into regular public comment, item D, comment on anything on the agenda or not on the agenda. Anybody like to comment during this section? Tom? And please state your name and address again for the record.
Good evening again, Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill Road. Congratulations to everybody that's up here. I didn't say that from the public side, but if you recall, on my last night here, I said I wasn't able to get a lot of things done, and I'm still hoping to get some of those things done, but maybe from the public side. And to be honest, I think I might be a little bit more effective over here, because every word I utter is not critiqued and misinterpreted. Anyways, following up on the blight, I didn't want to drag on too long about that. But, you know, you go around town, and I don't know if it's, you know, just something that I do, but I look at everything as I'm going by. And, you know, maybe people have a bit busier schedule, and, you know, they're focused on driving from A to B and, you know, dropping off their kids or doing whatnot, but I spend a lot of time just going around and observing. And I can't believe I'm the only one that does that. I really can't. I took some pictures today or this past week, of some of the blight issues. There's a house on the corner of Walcott Hill and Knott Street that is proposed for redevelopment, and broken windows. That's on the blight ordinance. You can't have broken windows. There's another picture of a building that probably everybody knows. It's also on Knott Street, the Clearinghouse Auction Gallery. Broken windows. Broken windows on the front of the building, and I guess I trespassed and walked all the way around the back, and there's lots of broken windows there too. I can't be the only one that notices these things. On Beaver Road, we did a nice repaving job. There's a sidewalk that goes down towards the railroad tracks and stops, and it was all overgrown with brush, and all the water flows downhill and all the garbage ends up there. Well, when they redid the road, I'm not sure if it was a contractor or a town crews, but they pushed all that brush back, and I realized their task at hand was to do the repavement, not to pick up garbage. But there's just tons of garbage, litter there that someone should be responsible for picking up. I go around and look at little insignificant things like these metal bases that are on the bottom of metal lamp posts. And there's 13 of them in front of Silas Deane Middle School. And 13 of them are rotted. One of them's missing. Those same pieces of tin are on the lamp posts at the high school, and they're also rotted. So these are the things that could be replaced for very little money and very little time. But no, we're going to let them rot, and then at some point in time, some community member's going to say, look at these all need to be replaced. We need to renovate the whole parking lot and replace all the lamp posts. They're all rusted and rotted. And I'm going to end with roofs, my short conversation about roofs. I haven't been watching the time, so give me a heads up.
Another minute and a half. You're good.
Okay. On September 5th, we had a discussion here in the town council about the Tremco roofing contract. And for the new members on the council, I'll give you a little background. I'm sitting at Village Pizza, looking at the roof across the street at the Standish House, and there's a shingle that's displaced, halfway up the roof, on the edge of the roof. And I'm upset about that, because if that was on my house, I'd fix that. And so I brought it up as a topic of discussion about this Tremco contract and what do they do, what are they supposed to do. Well, the picture was taken before the contract year for that roofing program. And now we're into the next year, and it's still like that. So that means that 12 months went by, and nobody did anything about the shingle. Now, it's not a big deal. It's on the edge of the roof. So we ended up tabling it, and it went to the September 18th meeting, and the fellow from Tremco came and answered some questions, and the result of some of that was that we weren't really sure if that had been inspected or not inspected. I had asked that, could we look into that?
I'm going to ask you to summarize your little
Okay.
over 5.
We never got an answer. We were told that it was going to be repaired. This is a quote. We're actually going to get out there before Thanksgiving, while the bucket truck was there to put lights on the holiday tree. And that never took place. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else from the public want to speak? Hearing none, we will move on to council reports. Does anybody from the council have a report? Councilor Rhodes.
I have a report from the library board. They met on December 5th, And the report was that the November Friends book sale did well. They brought in over $7,500. There's still some slots left for their Children's New Year's program, which is happening on Friday, December 29th at 11 a.m. There's sign up on the website. And they also said that they have started the process of selecting an architect for the library redesign project.
Thank you, Councilor Rhodes. Any other councilors with reports? Councilor Zambrello.
Thank you. I attended the last meeting of the Board of Education last week. They had a number of really great presentations. I understand they normally don't have that many, but they were all very informative. They started off with a presentation from a group of Highcrest students who gave a news report on the state of their school, learned about what they had for lunch and what their social emotional learning objective of the week was. And it was really great to see their presentation skills and how confident they looked up there and how they organized themselves. It was just, I'd love to see that every time. And there was a presentation from the athletic department on the state of fall sports, which I understand hasn't happened in a while. And they talked not just about their athletic achievement, but also the efforts they've made towards improving sportsmanship and really making Weathersfield a place that other towns want to send their teams to. And I hope that they'll come back and do that for spring sports as well. Also heard from the Keene Foundation on their in-school hands-on science program and after-school programs, which have been very successful as well. They are putting on, every elementary school is going to have a school musical next year for the first time, which is exciting. And there was also a report on the school improvement plans where each of the principals talked about some of their objectives for improving attendance and achievement in their schools. So really enjoyed all those presentations, and I encourage everybody to go, if you can, to these meetings. I guess they're not always as fun as this one was, but this one was very informative and good presentations. And I also just wanted to note that the Therapeutic Recreation and Parks and Recreation Santa's Pancake Breakfast last weekend was attended by 320 people, and the pancakes were delicious.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrello. Any other councilors with reports? I'll just quickly mention that last week I attended the Veterans Commission meeting, and a couple updates there. One is that, and most significant one, is the chair, Colonel Shipman, is leaving his post, and he has been the chair of the Veterans Commission since its inception, and he will be a big loss. He's leaving in June, so we're going to need a new chair. And those of you who know the work of the Veterans Commission, they have a great group, but spearheaded by Colonel Shipman. The only other thing I'll mention regarding the Veterans Commission is they are having a planning retreat on March 2nd to plan their goals for the year, which include the newsletter, the Veterans Day, and they want to do something new, which is a photo share. And the way that's going to work is veterans will bring in a photo of their service, time in the service, and then they'll talk about that photo, which is a nice idea. The committee members have done that, and now they're going to do that with the veterans at large. So hearing no other council reports, I'll move on to item F, councilor comments. Any councilor with any comments? I was going to mention the pancake breakfast, but Emily did. 300 people. I was serving pancakes, not eating them, but serving them, and that went well. We also had the grand opening of the Dream Barbershop. Thank you to Joya for helping, and thank you for many councilors attending that on last Saturday, the 9th. And then, of course, we had the fabulous Holidays on Main on December 7th, and thank you to all town staff. Fred, all your staff did an amazing job with Holidays on Main. And moving on to item G, town manager report. Fred.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, again, on the Holidays on Main, I think was an outstanding event. Staff did a great job. I want to thank, of course, the police for their presence. I know some of the shopkeepers down there they're concerned with the closures that we're doing now, but we are living in different times now, and it's critical that we take all the precautions necessary to protect, especially when we have so many people congregated in such a small area. So I think you all did a fantastic job. It was a great event. Heard lots of positive comments. We have had the initial after actions. We still think there are ways that we can improve it, and we will continue to do that. But I think it was a great model for how we'll do events like that in the future. So again, thank you to the police, fire, physical services for all the work that they did, getting everything up and ready. and the Parks and Rec folks for kind of being the organizer on our side of things, and the Chamber of Commerce, of course, for it was, their sponsored event, and I think they did a great job this year pulling it all together as well. I attended the Times Fool event for the holidays. They do the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol, and it's Wesley Brulick does the entire play, plays all the characters, and my wife and I went, and it was super impressive. It was a great show, and but it was a great community event too, because it was in one of the old barns down along Main Street, and just, I think, such a unique experience, and something you don't get in other places. And one of the things I noted was that the other people in attendance there made the comments like, where can you do this? Where can you experience something like this? And how special it really was. So I just want to thank them for being here. I think it's a great asset to have, and I'm looking forward to growing that asset here in town, because we need that as a regular function here. So with that, please my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Moving on to Town Clerk Communications, item H. Mr. Town Manager.
I'll just briefly mention, again, the town clerk is not here today, but there is the EDIC monthly report that's available for you in your packets as part of the communications, and that is all that she had for us tonight. So,
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Moving on to item I, bids, number I-1. Do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to appoint Jack Bradley of Halloran Sage as the town attorney for a term of 2 years per Chapter 5, Section 503 of the Town Charter.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Rhodes. Discussion. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
After reviewing the items that came in under the RFP, I've known Jack Bradley for quite a while now. He served as a town attorney for several years for this town. He's actually with the same firm as the previous town attorney, Halloran Sage, so I don't expect any type of, the firm knows all of the litigation going on. I don't think there's going to be any specific detriment by sort of changing the particular town attorney who's going to be the lead attorney for the town, since they really work as a team, I think, at the firm, from my understanding and all the conversations I've had with the attorneys. I think this will be a nice move for the town, and I'm looking forward to working with the town attorney as we handle the issues of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Any other discussion? I'll just add to what the Deputy Mayor said, that Jack Bradley has served our town as town attorney in the past, has served in this body, the council, and for many, many years, other community service. And they have a very collegial environment there, and even though Jack would be our lead attorney, if we pass this motion, Halloran Sage would still be working, and the other folks that worked on our cases before would still be working on our cases, but Jack would be the lead. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving along to the consent agenda, item J. Do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It was a tie there. I don't know which one was the first.
That's why you make the big decisions.
Councilor Zambrano, I'm going to give you that one. Any discussion on the motion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, moving on to item K. Approval of ordinance and resolutions. This is the one from our public hearing, R-2308, resolution creating the Weathersfield Quality of Life Committee. Do I have a motion? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Move to approve R-23-008, resolution creating the Weathersfield Quality of Life Committee, and request time to summarize.
Do I have a second? Second by Councilor Clancy. Discussion on the motion. I don't know, Mr. Town Manager, did you want to give some discussion on this for the good of the council and the public?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I think one of the things that I wanted to stress is what this committee is and what it isn't. As it was discussed with the mayor and the deputy mayor, the idea is that this will be an advisory group to the town council. It will promote and encourage compliance with all those ordinances that were spoken about earlier. Also, working to help ensure that, that we are doing things the best we can. We are out there, we're doing the work we need to be doing, but we can't be everywhere. And I think having a committee like this can certainly serve a purpose. It's to provide recommendations to the council for ways to address some of these issues if they see that there's something that could be done differently. Different towns do things different ways, different people have different experiences with this, so they would provide recommendations back to the council to be considered. The types of issues they'll be considered, I think Mr. Mazzarella covered most of them that are listed there, but the public safety type issues, the speeding, the traffic violations, parking violations, yes, there are all ordinances for all these things. But again, there are ways or places or things that, people might want to suggest that we could do things differently. Traffic light cameras is a good example of that, stoplight cameras, blighted properties, vacant properties, particularly town-owned properties and facility maintenance and upkeep. It's something that we've heard repeatedly that needs additional work in zoning, minimum housing, trash, beautification, all those other types of things that this committee will discuss. The committee will do this by meeting on a regular basis. They'll promote information sharing with citizens, maybe do some outreach, letting people know about the ordinances that we have. A lot of this is that people don't understand, so that could be one of the roles of this committee. And then again, issue recommendations back to the council. What it is not, I think it's important that people understand that it is not a public safety commission. It is not a commission that's going to dictate how staff is to do their jobs. I would not support that. I know the chief would not support that. And I don't believe those types of commissions work. I think they cause major morale issues and are problematic. So I believe what is being proposed here could be a very positive thing. And as crafted now, I would support, and I know that the chief would support it as well, and I've asked him to stick around until we got through this one in case any of you had questions for him. The committee would consist of 2 council members appointed by the mayor, and then 4 members of the public appointed by this body. That's about all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Questions from councilors? Councilor Carbone?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, good. Councilor Carbone?
So I know I missed the introduction to this last meeting, and I apologize for that. 'Tis the season for viruses. I think I'm a little confused. That was even in your description, you did a very good job of describing that, but it still makes absolutely no sense to me. And the only reason, and I'll tell you my reasoning. I feel that Weathersfield does a really good job of having access to our officials. You go on our website, you have phone numbers, you have emails, you can access the chief anytime you want, access Public Works. I just don't think we need this is just another avenue for people to come to. You said that you heard things need work. Well, you're hearing things need work, right? So if the information is getting to us, it's getting to our people, the breakdown is what? It's just not getting done. And so people are coming back again saying, well, it's not getting done, so now we're going to create this committee to, make sure it gets done? So I think that's my confusion. If you want to talk about our outreach and education, I'm all about that. I think communication between the community and ourselves is huge, and our key players, but getting them to understand what an ordinance is and what it's capable of, like what Tom said about how, the muffler ordinance, well, it's a little limited. Well, maybe we consider doing that, but is that what this committee is going to do? Let's change the ordinance. So I just don't think that, I just think it's another level of unnecessary committee in between our community and us. And I just, if things aren't getting done, that's a completely different conversation. It's a conversation of people not doing their work. And what you just said about, the traffic lights, it's a great, well, I asked him. He's right here. He's here every 2 months. He's so accessible to the community. People have access to him and he can take input. So I just think a lot of these people, we've hired them to do their jobs. We trust them, I'm hoping, to do their jobs, and most of them are doing a great job. And if not, then it's, up to us to get on that. But I think people do have access to us, especially with that app that you talked about we're going to be getting right in town. I think right on our phone. We're going to say, what did you say? You see something, you say something.
See-Click-Fix.
Say it again?
See-Click-Fix.
See-Click-Fix.
Yep.
So I just think that's just my thought. I'm just a little confused. I just don't think it's necessary, and that's my little point of view. So forget.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council comments? Councilor Bailey?
You're not confused.
I'm like,
You're
what's
absolutely
happening?
right. We have department heads, and if the disconnect is at the department heads, then our CEO should deal with that. I don't see it. I think we have a lot of good department heads. But that's what they're here for. They don't need us. Somebody said it before. We don't need to tell the chief how to do his job. Don't need to tell the fire chief. You know, if there's complaints, they answer to the town manager. And if there's a disconnect there, then you should work with that. Bringing in another level of bureaucracy, you're going to have 5,000 complaints, and you can't get to 5,000 complaints. Then they're going to get pissed at that. You know, why am I not being dealt with? So I agree with the counselor. I think it's not needed.
Thank you, Councilor Bailey. Councilor Timbrow.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I really am just echoing what has already been said and just adding a little more to the fold from what I heard. I have a few concerns with this. Again, when you talk about a committee, typically you're trying to address something that is not already being addressed. I believe that we've just talked about how we have people and organizations in place to do that. And if there is an issue, then we should be going to them, because it is not as if our town and the people who are in charge are not accessible. Even in your definition of what this truly is, there were two different things that you said that I just picked up on very quickly, so correct me if I misinterpreted, but you said an advisory group to the town council, and on one side you said advise compliance, and then on the other side you said promoting information and sharing with ordinances. Advising compliance, I feel, as Mr. Mazzarella said, is completely out of our purview as a council. And again, to Shelley's point, Councilor Carmone's point, you know, if it's something with education, if it's something with working groups to brainstorm beautification and things of that nature, I don't think that's an issue at all. But when you start going into what's listed and in the definition, sorry, I'm going to put it over here, quality of life should be included but not limited to speeding, traffic violations, crime. That to me is not a quality of life committee. That is taking on a job that is not for the public. It's for a department, a police department that we already have, among other things. So I think that's confusing. I think as it is tonight, one of my other biggest issues is the not limited to. I'm not in support ever of forming something that is not fleshed out and has a clear definition, and then that coming into the fold as more people. And I think that if we're going to do a quality of life committee, then our definition needs to be clearly defined, not only so that we have a committee that knows what their true intention is and there's no confusion with that, but also as recommendations are possibly coming to the council, we can hold some accountability as well and understand, well, this is in the scope of the committee versus this is actually not in the scope of the committee. So when you have that not limited to, and we're just kind of having an umbrella funnel of kind of a whole bunch of different things, that leaves room for misinterpretation, it leaves room for confusion, it leaves room for people to come into the committee and think that something is their responsibility when it's actually not. The other thing, real quick, and then I'll be done, we can move on, is as I was kind of thinking about this tonight, is I looked up the definition of quality of life as a standard of health, comfort, and happiness experienced by an individual or group, which I'm all about. The definition of oversight is actions taken to review and monitor organizations and their policies. I feel the definition as we have it now, being not fleshed out, lends itself more to something that is of oversight than is to actual quality of life. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Councilor Timbrow. Further council comment? Councilor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just quickly like to address what some of my concerns are with this commission. I think everybody in the town will agree that we want to improve our quality of life. I do tend to agree with some of the council members that we probably need to be more specific, especially when it comes to the police department. If we want to talk about police oversight, let's talk about police oversight. Let's call it that. My concern here is I'm already getting questions from the public saying this is a police oversight, just calling it something different. And if we're going to create a committee that's going to question the speeding and question all these different things, well, of course, the way for them to address those would be to talk to the town, to the police department, and then how far can they go? How are they going to ask for reports? How is this going to be interfering with the police work? And again, if that's what the town needs, I'm open for discussion. But if that's what it is, let's call it that. I understand that nobody's intention is to call it a police oversight or to do police oversight. I'm just a bit concerned that it's not specifically laid out that this is not police oversight and that this is what the limits are of the committee when it comes to dealing with the police and how far they can go and what other questions they can ask. I don't know if it's if this is the appropriate time for the police to give their comment on this, but again, I love the quality of life proposal. I think we all need it. I think it can all improve different things, but I can't support it until I see exactly what it is and what the limits are and what the responsibilities are to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dirk. Further council comment? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. For years, every election cycle, standing outside the polls, letters to the editor, years, people, one of their highest priorities of this town is quality of life issues. Up there with education, up there with roads. It's not small. Individually, they may be small. It is serious. It's on everybody's mind. It's what people see and feel and hear, just as the deputy mayor came up here and talked about. He didn't even talk about the nips in front of his house every day, but we know it for sure. The littering, the dumping, the toilets that are outside off of Brookfield Circle, I know it. The road conditions up on Silo Drive, right? The dumping down on Beaver Brook that we have to clean up every 3 weeks. The speeding down the South Scene Highway, the wheelies, the whole bit, right? They're all quality of life issues, and they're serious. And I think this ordinance helps us start to make this a priority, whatever it is.
Ordinance?
Ordinance creating the committee. Resolution.
Oh.
Sure. So, it's about time that this council took quality of life issues seriously, because it's what is humming at the street level of this town, from stop signs when Gus comes up to everything else. And it's not written narrowly for a reason, because we don't know exactly every single item that's going to come up here. We had, even recently, over the last few years, there's the night donuts of the cars with the loudness and the rest of it. You can't write that into an ordinance or a resolution for a particular governance. It's a quality of life committee. And the reason I think this is coming to the council now, and the reason that we're considering creating a committee, is because we're ready to take a leadership position that this is a priority of items that we want to address in our town. And it's extremely important to our citizens. And it's not just police, it's enforcement at all levels, it's recognition at all levels, it's technology at all levels. This is a committee designed to create a partnership between the elected political leaders, the citizens of this town, our staff, our police force, our fire, etc., that have to see these types of things on a regular basis, as trivial as they may be to some, but not to others, and a chance to work together in order to address our town for the better. So I'm hearing some concerns. I understand those concerns. But at the end, there's nothing in this ordinance that gives subpoena power, investigation power, or anything like that. It is an organization not unlike the Park and Rec Board that advises the council on fields and recreational facilities. It will help advise, and we can use this as a council to review ordinances throughout the time that we're up here attempting to legislate on various issues that are related to our quality of life here in Weathersfield. So I don't see as written any substantive form which oversees or directs or gives any particular power of any board or commission or council in order to do anything particular aside from advise this council and create a partnership between everyone to be able to move forward to start to address some of these issues. So we can live in a town that has nice standards, that looks good aesthetically, and that has a pride of place. I think that we've sort of lost a little bit of that pride of place over time. You might even think about, I've got emails over the last 2 years about all the shopping carts, right, that end up on the sides of streets. It certainly isn't armed robbery. We know this, but does it make a difference in our town? I think it does. And collectively, the toilets and the carts and the dumping has to be addressed in a priority way, and not just, well, somebody might make a complaint and we'll see it on a board. And so that's why I think that this ordinance is, not the ordinance, the resolution is important. I think the committee can do some very important work as it advises and nothing more to the town council and acts as a conduit with all of the parties that are in charge of and help create a high quality of life for our town. And that's why I think it should pass.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Further council comment? Councilor Zambrello. I got you, Councilor Carbone.
Okay.
I will be supporting this resolution today. I think everyone's brought up very valid points. I agree that I think it does need to be broad because we don't always know what the most important issue is at the time that they're having these discussions. But I really see this as a way to really focus this conversation and not just rely on individual complaints or individual conversations that we're having with members of the public or that staff are having, to give us a little bit better of an idea of what the issues are right now, what the priority should be, because as the town manager said, we can't do everything at once, and we can't prioritize every single ordinance, every single project at once. So I think this will help us get a much better idea of what those priorities should be, of what those conversations that need to be happening in a more formal way. And I also think that Councilman Forrest brought up a really good point about the makeup of this committee is very important here. It's not just a group of residents, it's a small group of residents and a counselor from each party. So it's bipartisan, it's easily split. It means that the counselors are actively engaged in that conversation. They can help direct if there's a question of if this is part of the purview of the committee, advise as necessary, and be right there in that conversation rather than a liaison from a single party or having the committee have to rely on reporting to us every time. We'll have a much more direct line of communication with this committee because members of this council on both sides will be on it. And I think that's very important, not just for this council, but for future councils to make sure that this is staying bipartisan and focusing on these issues that really do affect everyone. And I'll be supporting this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrello. Further council comment? Councilor Carbone, did you?
Anybody, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here I go again. I just wanted to address a few things. First of all, I can speak for myself. I never thought this would give anyone subpoena power or investigation power. And I don't think anyone's complaint is trivial. When you come up here and you speak to us or you email us, we might not respond right away or you might not get exactly what you're asking for, but it doesn't mean we don't take everyone's complaint seriously and give it thought and consideration. You mentioned the stop sign. Studies were done, emails were sent, people went out and investigated and looked at it, and things had happened. It was determined, unfortunately, in that case, that at that time the study didn't warrant it. That's a whole other conversation. You talked about, speeding. Now, we now have a traffic control officer. We hired somebody. You mentioned cleanups. We're doing cleanups every 3 weeks. They're getting done then, every 3 weeks. So I guess, again, my confusion is if it's about quality of life, isn't that what we're doing anyway? Isn't that everything what we're doing up here? Like, we're up here to make sure that Wethersfield has an amazing quality of life. We all want our town to be successful and thriving and beautiful. And I really I didn't notice those little caps on the lights. That bothers me. Why can't we get that fixed too? But again, so I just feel, I think we're all on the same page. I know we all have different ways of getting there, but I think when some people think that things aren't getting done, you think we're not hearing you. and I think maybe this committee, as you're thinking what's prioritizing, we're listening to the community. I think we're all listening to the community, but there's a process to things, right? Sometimes things take time, and maybe if, the education of people and getting people to know, well, our powers are limited to do this, we've put it off to this person, they're asking something, this takes money, we gotta, whatever it is. I guess what I'm saying, I just think it's a little redundant, and I think we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and I don't know, I just wanted to address those things.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council comment? Councilor Timbrell.
Yeah, so to continue with this conversation here, again, I think the most difficult time that I'm having is I feel like we're talking from two different sides every single time, we get to the mic when we talk about this committee. So, Councilor Zimbrella, when you were talking, you were saying, we can't have a limit on this definition because we don't really know what it's going to bring, but then we're saying that we're having the committee so we can focus more specifically on things in the town. I think that understanding what town residents feel is important for quality of life can be accomplished without a committee. I mean, there's plenty of different avenues from that. We've done it with surveys, we've had forums, we can have public hearings. There are many different options than putting something into practice that can evolve into an unknown entity, and that is my biggest problem with this not limited to anything committee, is that it is literally in your definition, but not be limited to. And everything that Deputy Mayor Forrest mentioned literally had to do with more oversight. So I just, and it brought up several things that the police department is already taking into account. So again, I agree. I will not be voting in support of this tonight, but I do feel it's redundant. I think that it would be out of our purview and scope as it is stated. And I think there are other ways to accomplish what this committee is saying its intention is without actually going down that road. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Timbrell. Further council discussion? I'm waiting patiently to say my own few words, but Councilor Clancy.
No, it does seem to me the more we try to clarify it, the muddier it's getting. And I just don't feel ready to vote on that tonight either without it being a little more clear. So I would be in favor of actually tabling it and discussing it more, coming up with a definition that we can all agree on before we go further.
So thank you, Councilor Clancy. Any further council discussion? So let me add a few words and then perhaps entertain a motion to table. I think we all can agree that the reason we're up here is to try and improve the quality of life for the people that live here. As town councilors, as the 9 of us, that's our highest charge, our highest impact, is to improve people's quality of life. The former deputy mayor said it better than I can, even though I'm not sure he's in favor of the committee. He's found all of these things around town. Perhaps he should be on the committee if we end up forming it, because it would be a repository for these types of issues. I hear about these things all the time, about blight, about noise, about excessive signage. These are significant issues that impact the quality of life. This has nothing to do with the police. Let me state this clearly. Our police department, led out by our chief, the fine men and women, they do a fantastic job. I don't support an oversight commission. This is not an oversight commission. This is a partnership proposed, and I'm hearing the sentiment at the table, and I think we're going to move in that direction. But this is a proposed partnership between not just our police, but other enforcement parts and the public, the bipartisan council and bipartisan members of the community. It's as important as anything else we do in terms of improving the quality of life that people live here. As I said, the deputy mayor brought up so many things, and I hear about these things all the time. And as the new deputy mayor, Deputy Mayor Forrest said, it's akin to having a committee like Parks and Rec Board, which advises, okay? It's not to oversight what the head of that department or any department is doing. So it's a very healthy debate. We've had a great discussion, probably the best debate of the new council, and I appreciate everybody weighing in. That's what we're here for. And we're not going to agree on everything. I don't agree on everything with my wife. But I hear a nice sentiment about we need to clarify this. We need to maybe make it a little bit more I don't want to say palatable, but people understand what the intent is, and I respect that. So I don't know, Mr. Town Manager, if we want to go any further, if the chief wants to make some comments, but I'm certainly hearing kind of a movement where a lot of people aren't comfortable either with the way it's written or with voting tonight, and I respect that, and it would entertain potentially in a minute a motion to table, but Mr. Town Manager,
I think it's appropriate to table it if you all want to take some more time, and if we want to, you're welcome to ask the chief questions about it, but I think if you want to first formulate any changes you want and then have him respond to that, might make more productive use of time, but.
Chief, I'll ask you if you've got any comments. You don't have to make any. It looks like we're going to table this, but you're welcome to make any comments on this proposed committee.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment. I'm hearing a lot of conversations in the back of the room, and a lot of confusion in this. I'm even more confused now about where you want me to lead this department. We talk about noise complaints. Quite frankly, this isn't the first 48 hours. I can tell you, Putnam Park, we identified 135 cars. We've ticketed drivers. We're sending out letters. These are things that are ongoing, but we can't tell you about that because these are some active investigations. I would ask that you come to me and ask. I would ask that you go on ride-alongs with my officers. I would ask that you come to the police department and get to know us before what it sounds like creating an oversight committee. Because we are doing these things. We are, contrary to what Mr. Mazzarella said, we are stopping cars with mufflers. That's one of the initiatives. That's one of the things they've been instructed to do. We are doing that. You want to know about O'Reilly's? I can't talk about it, but we have leads that's going in the right direction. So these are things that are going on behind the scenes that, quite frankly, you can pull me in executive session and you can ask. Those are things that I can't put out to the general public. But every time you come to me with a problem, we usually give you a solution. Now, I've been doing this for 2 years. I've been here for 2 years, and you brought me here for a reason, to turn this police department around. And I can tell you what, from the organizational climate study, to the IA report, to CALEA, to being off the racial profiling list, for tripling our motor vehicle stops, reducing our accidents by 20%, we're being the 5th lowest crime rate around, the lowest crime rate in the surrounding 5 towns. I think the men and women in this police department are doing an outstanding job. Outstanding job. So the oversight you wanted is being done by me. The accountability is being done by me. If you choose to do what you want to do, I can tell you, it's hard enough for me to get people in the door now. But we are doing that job. We are going out there. I can't speak any higher about this department and the men and women. But we come to you bi-monthly. We show you the numbers. We show you where the stops are. We show you where the accidents are. We show you the time of day, even down today to the ordinances. I ask, what more do you want from my department? That's all.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, and I'll just say you and your department are doing an amazing job, and I hope you're getting that message from us, and certainly I'm saying it right now. Does anybody else have any council comment and would entertain we do have a motion on the table. I would entertain any amendments or changes to that.
Oh, yeah.
But there was it was seconded, so don't we have to vote on it, or no?
So we have an original motion on the table. Can we motion a table on top of that procedurally?
Yeah.
So are you making the
So I'm
motion?
making that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Rhodes. All in favor of tabling? Aye. Anybody opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody. Moving along. Okay. Good, healthy discussion. Appreciate everybody.
Motion going.
We are on item L, unfinished business. We don't have any. Item M, new business. Mr. Town Manager, M1. It's the HVAC.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. This request is for additional matching funds. We'd like to designate an additional $400,000 from the Capital Improvement Program Reserve account for a potential match if we were to be successful with this grant. You'll notice as part of your packet, we had to go out with, for this, we did have pricing before for the chiller that you all approved, the previous council approved funding for with ARPA funds. That was with our HVAC technician providing those quotes, but the level of quotes we needed for this grant are much more involved, and we had difficulty, to say the least, in getting firms to even respond, because unless there's an actual RFP out there, they generally do not want to do that these days. But we did get quotes. They're on the high side, and just allow us to go ahead and submit this grant application, which we feel like we'd have a good shot at. We are asking to designate the funds from the Capital Improvement Program Reserve Account in the amount of $400,000 for the Silas Deane project. That will be both for the chiller and the air handler. Vlada Shelkova is here to answer any questions, and Sally's here as well if you have any questions specific to it. But in a nutshell, if we don't get the grant, we likely won't be utilizing these funds. If we do get the grant, we'll go out to bid and we'll get a true price based upon the market at that time. But right now, this is what we have for pricing, and the grant is due at the end of this month, so we wanted to come back to you with this ask. Again, that money, our intent is to put the request in as part of the capital improvement process with the budget process that we go through in March, so we will still do that, and that will allow this money to remain in capital reserve if, in fact, that were to be approved. And then, even if we don't get the grant, we can move forward with larger portions of the project. So, happy to answer any questions, and Vlada's here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Questions, councilors? Councilors? Councilor Carbone?
Geez, I'm awfully chatty this evening. Didn't we allocate, please correct me, I thought we allocated $360,000,
Yes.
so this is an additional $40,000 that we're going to have to come up with?
400,000.
I'm sorry.
400.
This is in addition to that?
400.
Correct.
Additional 400.
Yes.
The initial allocation was just for the chiller unit. That was also before we had accurate pricing. That was just kind of a very preliminary estimate. These estimates are based off of an engineer's report. So it goes much more in depth. They came out, took a look at it. We still need engineer drawings to get the level of specificity for the project, to get a very accurate estimate here, which would go out for RFP. So we won't have the exact cost of the project until we do that. We are on the high side now, though, for the project estimate. But the initial request was just for a chiller unit. Now we are applying for a chiller and an HVAC or an air handler unit.
I see, okay.
And if you look at the quote, it includes a lot of the extra work, the plumbing, the electric, all the...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's pretty involved, and that's, a lot of this we'll be able to do in-house. Not all of it, though. Some of it we'll have to allow for the contractor. So once if we're fortunate enough to get the grant, then we'll go out to bid and do the full specifications, and then we'll know exactly what the costs are going to be. But that's the way these grants work. Unfortunately, we have to show that, you're committed to putting the match there if we were to be awarded it, and this is what the only price we could get right now come in at, so.
And just for a recap, for this grant, we would be reimbursed 56% of the project cost. I had there were office hours held about a week and a half ago, so I had the opportunity to speak with admin that are going to be looking over grants. So I did talk to them about the project. They said submit full costs for everything just to cover us. Okay. They were worried about the town. They were saying submit every cost that you have so that you are able to reimburse it at the rate. If you don't do that, we would not be able to reimburse those costs if we were to incur or go over what we put in. So we've put everything into the grant application. We might not incur all of these costs when we go out to RFP and get a more accurate cost estimate. So we're kind of hedging our bet here. We're being very careful and allowing ourselves to be able to go up to this full price amount that we've gotten the estimate for, so that we can take advantage of that full 56% reimbursement.
Councilor Carbone, any follow-up?
No, thank you, Vlad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other council, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to move to designate capital improvement program reserve account funds in the amount of $400,000 for HVAC equipment replacement at the Southstein Middle School to provide required matching funds for the HVAC air quality for public schools grant application.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Dirk. Further discussion?
All I was going to say, oh, so sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead. You got the floor.
My turn. All I was going to say is that I was at the bonding hearing that happened on Friday, and I'm pretty excited about this because I know that they went from 56 million being allocated to the schools last year to 244 million, and they're like broadening who they're going to give it to and how they're communicating, and I know the application is due soon, but I think that we have a good chance, hopefully, since they're being so much broader and it was just approved, so.
Exactly, and the way that we're applying as well is we're applying to a larger pot of money. We're applying now before we do the project, which is more money in that area of the grant than rather doing the project and then going for reimbursement on the back end and applying after the fact. So this is very beneficial to be doing it this way rather than having to not going forward, doing the chiller separately and then going to the application process that way, or for the project that way. There's just a smaller pot of money on the back end.
Further council discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Robert. Moving on to item N, we don't have any other ordinance or resolutions for introduction. Item O, this is the second public comment section. Anybody is free to talk about anything. Limit your comments, please, to 5 minutes, and please state your name and address. Tom?
Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill Road. I want to follow up on, I'm sorry I talked too long, and I think we should have a timer up here because it's difficult when you're talking to
We're thinking about that.
figure out, and some of you that have been on the council know that I am not usually short for words. Getting back to my displaced shingle, and I just find it very annoying that I brought it up. I spoke with Director of Physical Services and also Mike Boudreau, I think it is, from Tremco. The way it was left at that meeting, the council was going to get answers. Now, maybe you have answers. I haven't seen them because I'm not on the council. So I would like to hear whether they inspected that roof or not. And they don't need to go up on the roof to see that. I saw it from the ground. Anybody can see it from the ground. We don't have to send a town employee out to inspect all the roofs and look every single day, but there had to be people notice this. Now, the bucket truck, when they put the lights on the tree, that bucket truck was probably 15 feet from that shingle. And that's when it should have been taken care of. And the public was told that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. So I'm irritated about that. And I'm not going after any specific person or whatever, but this is what was told, and it didn't happen. And that's been a routine in this town for years. Okay? We voted on the contract, and off everybody went, and there was never any follow-up. Going back to the blight, I didn't want to belabor the point, but as Mayor Lesser said, he didn't bring up the NIPS. Well, for the people that don't know what we were talking about, I live on Walcott Hill Road, and I'm a short distance from the local package store. And it's the exact amount of time it takes to crack a bottle, crack the top off a nip, and drink it and throw it out your window. And on one day, I walked my property line to the corner, so it was my house and my next door neighbor's, and I picked up 42 nips. 42, okay? I walk on my property line almost every day. I'm retired, I have nothing else to do, so I walk out there, and I pick up all the garbage. But it gets old after a while. And the point I was trying to make is I think the town as a whole becomes numb. I think that's the word that I wanted to use. We become numb to these small little quality of life issues, and everybody says, you know, why do I need to go down there and pick up the trash in front of my house? My next door neighbor doesn't do it. This guy's not doing it. Why do I keep going out there? Why do I care if a muffler's making noise? Just because it irritates me? No one seems to care. And I'm going to take exception with Chief Medina. He told me to my face that he was not going to pull someone over for an equipment violation. It's in the newspaper article. I think it was in that statement that they put up on the screen tonight. They eliminated pulling people over for equipment violations that are minor infractions because they were concerned it was going to make us look bad on Ken Barone's report. And he's done an excellent job of getting us off that list of racial profiling, but he's done it by moving where the violations are going to be addressed and what violations are going to be addressed. And I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. And so I take offense to being said, no, that's not true. We are going to pull people over for exhausts. I was at the police station. That's what I was told. We're not going to do anything about it. We can't do anything about it because that's the way the ordinance is written. So it doesn't matter that people make complaints. And I don't understand what a committee of people are going to do to solve that. And maybe the chief took it wrong that we're attacking his police department. That's not my intent. I'm saying facts. And so I'll end with that, but that's the reality of it.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Other further public comment? Hearing none, I'll just say I want to wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We won't have an official council meeting till next year, January 2nd, and I'll take a motion, entertain a motion for item P.
Don't we have no words? Isn't that in,
Is there another item that we didn't?
I don't see another
I don't
item.
think there's another item. Councilor Bailey, Mr. Town Manager?
just making sure we didn't miss it.
I think we're good.
The woods wasn't in there?
No,
It was in our packet.
no, it wasn't.
It was in mine.
You got the special bag. You got the golden for sure. We didn't. You go see Walker.
I think he's talking, right? I think he's talking about, Rich, I think you're talking about what was under the consent agenda, so it was approved as consent agenda, the filtration.
The filtration of Mill Woods, yeah. We approved it on.
Okay. Yep.
I'll entertain a motion P for executive session. Mr. Deputy Mayor,
So moved.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And they passed it.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We move to executive session. Thank you.